There's something big brewing. Can you feel it? There's something going on. I'm in almost daily contact with one of my viewers. He works at a big coin shop. Let's just say it's somewhere in the southern United States. He says everybody who comes in, and they're doing a huge volume of gold coin and bullion sales, everybody kind of senses the same thing. There's something big going on. But what is it? I think I know or have a real good idea, and I'm going to share it with you in this video. It's been a rough couple weeks for gold, silver, precious metal mining stock investors. Heck, last week alone, gold was down what? Almost 1%, silver down 1.5%, and the mining stocks, they were down like 3%. And in the last 2 weeks, gold and silver mining stocks are on average down about 15%. But what is happening? I mean, everything's great out there, right? I mean, we're hearing how strong the economy is, how inflation is disinflating, according to our friend Jerome Powell. But what's really going on and what could be huge, huge news for precious metals? Let's talk about it right now. We're going to get to the bottom of what's really going on out there and discuss the one huge factor that could be super supportive for precious metals. Yes, very, very good for precious metals. But let's talk about what's going on out there in the economy. What are you seeing? I mean, we're being told, right, that we had record number of jobs created in January, like 500,000 new jobs. That Joe Biden, he's just pulling off an economic miracle. What about inflation? We're being told that inflation is starting to come down. What about credit card balances? Well, they're doing pretty good, aren't they? The U.S. consumer has a record level of debt right now, like $17 trillion in debt. Record levels of credit card debt. Oh, and by the way, the interest rates on that credit card debt, well, they're at record highs as well. So there's another record for us. And what about business at food banks? I hear that's at record levels as well. As a matter of fact, there's record lengths of lines of people lining up for free food. And they must think we're really dense because they even tried to sell us recently on the fact that we had really strong retail sales numbers. Well, that is until you factor in inflation. If you factor in inflation, retail sales aren't really doing anything. But I'm sure if you go to a car dealership today, you'll just see a record number of people lining up to buy new cars. That is, if there are any. In home sales, well, they got to be doing great because, you know, mortgage rates have only almost doubled or gone up more in the last year alone. But don't you dare try to talk to somebody, you know, who maybe sells cars or houses or works for a big tech company. Have you noticed the big tech companies are laying off thousands and thousands of people? And that was like the driver of the new economy. But I'm sure there's lots of new jobs being created at McDonald's and Wendy's, right? I mean, or people are taking 2 or 3 jobs now just to make ends meet. But don't worry, everything's great out there. It's an economic miracle that's going on. Jerome Powell in the Federal Reserve, he's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. He's manufacturing a soft landing. And what about our old friend inflation? We're going to talk about that next. But right now, I want to talk about my new friend, and that's you. Yes, you. I consider you a friend. When you join me here in Ron's Basement from wherever in the world you are, you know what? It feels good to have friends. You can say you're friends with Ron from Ron's Basement. I want you to come back. Please consider subscribing. Now, let's talk about inflation, friend. Have you been to the grocery store lately? Have you been to the gas station? Have you been to Walmart or Sam's or what's that? Costco? I've never been to a Costco in my life. I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm like the most frugal guy. And I hear that Costco's like awesome. I guess I'm just too cheap to buy the membership. I don't know. But nonetheless, when we go out and we try to live, you know, inflation, they're telling us it's 6.5%. Good job, Jerome. You got it under control. But when we look at the real numbers that we are experiencing, when we listen to the gurus, and look, I'm not a guru in everything. I don't know if I'm a guru in anything, but nonetheless, the gurus that understand inflation. There's a website called, I believe, Shadow Stats that like calculates inflation the same way they calculated it back in 1980. That seems like a long time now, 40 years. I was 10 years old. But nonetheless, if you calculate inflation today the same way they did back then, we've got like 15% inflation. I mean, like, what do they count in the inflation numbers? That's my question. Like the cost of a bag of gravel from Home Depot? I'm not sure. Nonetheless, we've got big inflation still. And a lot of the experts are saying it will continue, that it's still going to remain sticky and remain a problem. So when we put it all together, here comes the grand finale, guys. When we put it all together, we have high inflation and we have this economy that's maybe not doing so great. When the realities of the economy collide with high inflation, boom! The grand finale, you know what it spells out? It spells out stagflation. It spells out a slow economy with persistent inflation. Now, put yourself in the shoes of Jerome Powell, our good friend. The bear, he loves Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell at that point's in a real sticky situation. Draw yourself a square, a box on a piece of paper, and write Powell inside of it. Because when there's stagflation, okay, he has high inflation, which means he needs to be tighter with money. But he also has an economy that's sputtering, that's failing, which means he needs to be easy with money. And they aren't going to let the economy completely crash. What he'll default to is what they always default to. Pivoting. There you go. The P word. I really can't stand that word, but he'll pivot because he doesn't want the economy to crash. And when he has to pivot and become a little more dovish and a little more loose with monetary policy to help the economy, but that inflation, oh yeah, over there, it's still going, right? That's going to make inflation really take off. And when you look back to the 70s and 80s, okay, when we had stagflation the last time, silver and gold went through the roof. So when they're selling you all these fairy tales about how great everything is out there in the economy, remember what you're experiencing. Remember what the real numbers, right? What the real people that sell houses and cars, when you look at real numbers of layoffs coming through, when you look at real numbers like international shipping rates, like how much does it cost to ship something from China to the United States? It's crashed. It's because things are contracting. Sure, on just a dollar basis, you can say, well, retail sales went up last month. Yeah, but the number of goods and services that are trading hands, that is going down. It's just happening at a higher dollar rate because inflation's out of control. Look, when we put it all together, when we look at the big picture, I know it can be rough. I know it can be cloudy, and I don't have a crystal ball. But when we do our best to kind of put it all together, look at the forest through the trees, right? We see a picture that could look very good. On the other side of that forest is a pot of gold and silver. Good times will be ahead for us. You know, when gold hits $2,500, the blindfold comes off the bear. We're going to have a big party here in Ron's Basement. Hey, I appreciate you joining me. I hope you're well. Please come back, and I'll see you soon.